These two twins were quickly taking over college football, but sophomore year turned into a nightmare, at least for one of them. Knox transferred to Alabama with national title aspirations and got smacked in the mouth by reality fast. Individually, he found his footing, settling in as one of the nation's premier defenders, but the problem was everything else around him. The offense was inconsistent, the rest of the defense underperformed, and the team never quite caught up to the level he was playing at. Meanwhile, Jalen Knox, a kid nobody thought would even sniff a D3 roster coming out of high school, shocked the country by bursting onto the scene as the RB1 for Sam Houston. It was a pivotal year for his development, but even as the numbers piled up, there was a quiet truth underneath all of it. Something was telling him he was ready for more. Welcome back to another video, you guys. First and foremost, sorry for making you wait so long for this one. I promise it won't happen again, and before we get started, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe because my analytics tell me most of you watching aren't actually subscribed, so you know who you are. It felt like both twins were drifting towards the transfer portal, but this wasn't a decision you could rush. When the two finally caught up, Jaylen asked Marcus where his head was at, and honestly, Marcus didn't have a clear answer yet. He just knew he needed some guidance. Wait a minute, who's calling? It's Elijah Knox, their father, calling to share a story. When Elijah took the Texans to the Super Bowl and lost, everyone around him said the same thing: demand a trade and get out of Houston. Go somewhere easier. But that didn't sit right with him, so he chose to stay, and the next year they finished the job. This wasn't any different. Marcus didn't go to Alabama to feel comfortable, he went there to hoist a trophy, and walking away now wouldn't fix what was unfinished. The truth was, the back half of sophomore year proved something pretty important. Marcus still had more to give to this team, and if he could string together a full season playing at that level, there was no telling how far this thing could go. So for junior year, Marcus was staying put, which left Jaylen. Going back to Sam Houston and chasing a Conference USA title crossed his mind, but that's not it. Marcus floated the idea of finally teaming up at Alabama, the plan they once dreamed about, but that didn't feel right either. And then he found it. A team desperate for difference makers, playing in a division that would eat you alive if you let it. Exactly the kind of fight Jaylen wanted. He was off to Vanderbilt. The Commodores sat at the bottom of the SEC food chain and everyone knew it. Jaylen wasn't brought in to be a savior, but simply to raise the floor. He entered junior year rated a 76 overall and still trying to prove he belonged at this level. After his first practice, coach shot a message out to the team: the season schedule is now live. And Jaylen was eager, scrolling through the matchups. SMU, South Carolina, Mizzou, LSU. Then he froze. Alabama. Week 7. He'd be going toe-to-toe with his twin brother. His stomach flipped and he wasn't sure why. Was he nervous? Excited? Scared even? Probably all of it. But none of that mattered right now. After all, his role as RB1 wasn't guaranteed to last. It was his job to make coach never want to take him off the field, starting in week 1 against NC State. When Jaylen took the field, he was overwhelmed at the magnitude of it all. For as long as he could remember, he'd just been waiting for the game to tell him to hang up the cleats, that it was over. But here he was, playing in the SEC. Jaylen lines up in the backfield for the first time as a Commodore, and on his first handoff, the line parted like the Red Sea, and he didn't hesitate, hitting the hole, and 34 yards later, he's finally chased down. Just like that, a statement was made. But his junior debut wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. NC State adjusted fast, and the hits were coming faster and harder than he'd ever felt before. No point in sugarcoating it, Vanderbilt was getting dog-walked. But late in the third quarter, Jaylen would finally find a crease again with nothing but green in front of him. He lowered his shoulder at the goal line, and honestly, I'm not really sure what happened here. Vandy would lose their season opener, and Jaylen, well, he was feeling every bit of it. The loss, the hits, and most of all, the wake-up call. If he was going to survive in the SEC, he needed to tap into a level he'd never reached before. After the game, Jaylen figured it was time to address the elephant in the room. Speaking of elephants in the room, Marcus, freshly committed to Alabama, locked in on a national title run, didn't even realize what Jaylen was talking about when he mentioned the schedule. Oh, right, week 7. That'll be interesting, huh? Are you ready? The two had only ever lined up against each other in practice as kids and in backyard drills, but in a real game, all bets were off. For Marcus, sophomore year came with plenty of growing pains, but by the end of it, he'd found his stride. Coming in at a 90 overall, junior year wasn't about proving he belonged, it was about pushing his ceiling. And what better way to start than with a heavyweight matchup against number 7 ranked Michigan? Alabama was gifted a top 25 ranking to open the year, but Marcus knew more than anyone, rankings didn't mean much. Michigan came out in empty sets early, forcing Marcus to line up out on an island. A clever tactic to get him out of the way, and Marcus was just relieved he wasn't actually being asked to play corner. But that adjustment didn't last long. The rest of the Bama defense stepped up, forcing Michigan to change up the approach, and once they did, Marcus was free to fly downhill and play his game. Yeah, Marcus was going to be a problem this year. At one point, he fought through 3 blockers on a rush to the quarterback. No, seriously, count them. 2 quarters in, Alabama's defense was pitching a shutout, and by the third quarter, Michigan's running back had managed just 5 yards on 10 carries. Most of that thanks to Marcus. Late in the fourth, tied at 14, under 2 minutes left, Marcus was smelling blood. Wolverines backed up on their own 1 yard line. Marcus shot through the gap and overshoots this easy tackle just a smidge, but does just enough to contribute to a safety. Alabama hangs on and escapes with an ugly win, but hey, 1-0 is 1-0. To Marcus, this year felt different. He felt unstoppable, finally fully connected with his coaches and teammates, and the energy inside the locker room was higher than it had ever been. There was a genuine belief there now, one that hadn't existed before. So when Ohio State came to town, nobody flinched. This was the same team that had embarrassed Alabama just a year ago, and for Marcus, this wasn't just another early season matchup, this one was personal. And call him Anakin, because his powers had doubled since the last time they met. Marcus hunted all night long, while the offense took full advantage of every stop he and the defense created. By the fourth quarter, the Tide were up 2 scores, and Marcus was out there sending people to the hospital. Alabama gets their revenge, moves to 2-0, and Marcus made one thing very clear. This year, he was on a mission, and nothing and no one was going to slow him down. I mean, this FCS team would try, but yeah, let's just move on. After starting the season 3-0, Marcus was once again college football's golden boy, and Alabama found itself right back in the national title bubble. And while Marcus was soaking it all in, going to pool parties at the coach's house, up in Nashville, Jaylen was stewing. Marcus didn't seem all that concerned about their upcoming matchup, and that didn't sit right with him. Did he really think it was going to be a walk in the park? Because for Jaylen, it's been all he could think about. Every spare moment was spent either in the weight room or the film room. There certainly was no time for pool parties. Jaylen treated every game like Marcus was on the other side of the field, and while this FCS opponent wasn't exactly Marcus level competition, he still wasn't taking it easy. And sure, the defense looked like a middle school unit out there, but to Jaylen, racking up numbers like this still mattered. And no, there wasn't a soul in the country who believed Vanderbilt could actually topple Alabama, but quietly, Vandy's offense was putting on a clinic. Even when the ball wasn't in Jaylen's hands, the Commodores looked sharp. Then in the third quarter, Jaylen went nuclear. He spun out of a tackle, turned his eyes upfield, brushed off another defender, and suddenly he was gone, 54 yards to the house. And he wasn't finished there. With the game all but over, Jaylen insisted on staying out there, wanting every possible snap. With one more handoff, he found a crease up the middle and went untouched for 74 yards and another touchdown. 350 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 school record later, Vanderbilt knew they had their guy. For the first time this year, Jaylen was getting national attention, and if he was being honest, it felt good knowing Marcus was definitely seeing it. But truth be told, a week 2 win over an FCS cupcake squad wasn't exactly something to hang your hat on. The coaches were thrilled, but Jaylen needed more. He wanted something that could actually test him, and that test arrived quickly in the form of number 15 ranked SMU. Despite everything he had done at Sam Houston, and even in his early dominance at Vanderbilt, analysts still couldn't say Jaylen's name without mentioning Marcus in the same breath, and he hated that. Early on, Vanderbilt moved the ball well, but it didn't last. SMU adjusted, tightened up, and Jaylen's daylight started disappearing fast. Then his quarterback threw a pick and the Mustangs cashed it in, and suddenly the Commodores were chasing. From there, things unraveled. Vanderbilt's O-line was Vanderbroken, and Jaylen was getting swallowed up nearly every time he touched the ball. But resilience was his calling card. On 3rd and 11, he leaked out of the backfield, found a soft spot in the coverage, and raced towards it. The quarterback hit him in stride, and Jaylen dragged the offense down to the 5-yard line. He had given them life, the spark they needed to finally reach the end zone. Coming out of the half, Vanderbilt was still in it, and Jaylen made sure they stayed that way. He kept his foot on the gas, ripped off another big run, and even threw in a rare juke. And if he were as fast as he is strong, this one might have gone the distance. Fast forward to the fourth quarter, down 7, under a minute left, staring at another 3rd and long, everyone in the huddle knew this was it. Jaylen worked his magic again, slipping up the seam, doing just enough to move the chains. One strike from the quarterback tied the game, and suddenly Vanderbilt had the ball again with 20 seconds and some hope. One more clutch play from Jaylen pushed the offense into field goal range, and one kick later, against all odds, Vanderbilt had pulled off the upset. Jaylen may not have found the end zone in this one, but make no mistake, he was the heartbeat of this win. Even the media had no choice but to give him his flowers. After the game, Jaylen sent a couple of his highlights to Marcus, a quiet warning of things to come. Marcus was amused, but not exactly impressed, and in just a few short weeks, the two would be face to face. The Knox Bowl was approaching fast, and Jaylen was stuck between preparing for Marcus and simply surviving the SEC, and South Carolina would deliver a harsh reality check. Vanderbilt struggled badly. Their shiny new running back couldn't find any space, and the line wasn't doing him any favors either. Credit where it's due though, the coaching staff got creative, splitting Jaylen out wide and scheming ways to get him touches. But still, the Gamecocks exposed every flaw in the Commodores, and there were many. Jaylen took a beating, and Vanderbilt came up empty. In the locker room, Jaylen sat with his head down, going over the game in his head. Just when it felt like he was breaking through, he was knocked right back down. As he packed up his gear, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. "You'll have to do better than that in week 7. Jaylen left him unread, but yeah, he knew Marcus was right. And while Jaylen was still finding his footing in the SEC, his brother hadn't skipped a beat. Alabama was 3-0, boasting the nation's most terrifying defense, and 12th ranked Oklahoma State didn't feel all that threatening to Marcus. With every passing week, he found new ways to terrorize offenses, crashing through the line for safeties or dropping into coverage and hitting like prime Brian Dawkins. Ranked opponents fell one by one like it was nothing, and at the center of it all stood Marcus Knox. Following the win, Alabama secured a new top 10 ranking and were looking unstoppable. And if number 8 ranked Oklahoma couldn't slow them down, there truly was no hope for the rest of the nation. Marcus started the day slow, which was rare, but unlike last year, the defense didn't completely collapse without him. A pick 6 gave Alabama an early lead, but truth be told, Marcus hates watching other people make plays, so he locked in, and as soon as the Sooners were driving before the half, Marcus was finally making his mark on the game. But despite him making plays right before halftime, Oklahoma finally sneaked one over Marcus's head and tied it up. Coming out of the half, if you've ever seen that photo of the gamer sitting up in his chair, that was basically Marcus. Then came probably the play of the season. Marcus comes through with the rush, the QB rolls off one sack, turns and launches a bomb down the field all the way down to the 2-yard line. But with their backs against the wall, Alabama forced a fumble at the goal line. And with 2 minutes to play, Bama clinging to their 7-point lead, Oklahoma was driving. The Tide defense looked gassed, but once the Sooners reached the red zone, Marcus decided enough is enough. Sitting in coverage, he read the quarterback's eyes and stepped in front of the throw for his first interception since freshman year. A pick that saved the game. We won't talk about how the game still slipped into overtime and got really scary, just that Alabama hung on and improved to 5-0. And after staying undefeated, the same reporter who clowned Marcus and Bama's losing streak last year was back again singing nothing but praise. By this point in the season, Marcus was operating on another plane of existence. His highlights looped everywhere, all over the nation, and when they reached Jaylen, they unsettled him. He'd never feared his brother, but now he was seeing what the rest of the country saw. A monster. With only 2 weeks before the showdown, every single snap mattered. He knew going up against Marcus would be the toughest challenge of his life, and now was no time for setbacks. Mizzou was tough, one of the toughest teams Vandy had faced all year. In the rain, on the road, but Jaylen wasn't letting that slow him down. The Tigers were getting stiff, and right before the half, Vanderbilt was still trying to get on the board. Desperate for a spark, Jaylen took the handoff, weaved through traffic before bouncing it outside, and this is normally where Jaylen would get tracked down, but with one Tiger to beat, he hit a gear he'd never found before, and he was gone, all the way for 6. And coming out of the break, he said, "Want to see me do it again?" Racing past some more beautiful blocks, and it's yet another foot race to the end zone, this time diving across the goal line for his second long touchdown of the day. By the end of it, Jaylen had flat out dragged Vanderbilt to the win. While the team celebrated, Jaylen stayed locked in. Even when his first NIL deal came calling, he barely reacted. And part of him even thought they'd called up the wrong Knox by mistake. Earning something on his own still didn't feel right. And next up for the Commodores, a matchup that Jaylen might have overlooked. LSU. He had been so focused on week 7 and his matchup against Marcus that he had almost forgotten about the Tigers. His head was already in next week and it showed. Jaylen was sluggish, his vision was non-existent, and the number 12 ranked Tigers and the home crowd in Death Valley were making it impossible to do anything. The Commodores had no choice but to spread the ball around, and even were able to approach the goal line where Jaylen found a rare crease, slipped through defenders, and dove into the end zone. Right then, Jaylen snapped back into the moment. Alright, maybe he could salvage this week after all. The Vanderbilt defense stifles the Tigers, coming through with a stop and giving Jaylen and the offense another chance to make something happen. Jaylen began to find his footing, and the OC was getting into his bag. Options, route combinations out of the backfield, and just when it looked like the Commodores were about to find pay dirt again, the Tigers decided to stop playing with their food. And nearly every drive from that point on was a disaster. The quarterback throwing picks, Jaylen getting crushed, sacks in the backfield, and with LSU finally playing like one of the top programs in the nation, Jaylen was trying to fight off the feeling that maybe he didn't belong here. And late in the fourth quarter, this interception would perfectly sum up the afternoon. Despite the promising start, Vanderbilt got squashed, and after the loss, Jaylen was reeling. One week he looked like a Heisman contender, the next like he was right back in high school. But just like that, all roads lead to week 7. Jaylen soaked up every last minute inside the training facility, while Marcus was laser focused on a national championship, rolling over every team in his path, barely slowing down long enough to look back. And when the two caught up one final time before kickoff, Marcus made it very clear. Jaylen would be no exception. You know I can't take it easy on you, right? I was going to say the same to you. Jaylen versus Marcus. Underdog versus unstoppable force. The Knox Bowl was here.
Their whole lives they played side by side. Tonight, for the first time, they collide. Marcus Knox, college football's top defender for Alabama, and across the line, his twin brother Jaylen, an overlooked back for Vanderbilt.
It was a rainy night in Nashville, but that didn't stop the fans from piling in, shoulder to shoulder, to witness the battle of the ages. After a quick empty drive from Bama's offense, it was finally time. The Knox twins would share the same field for the same game, only this time against each other. As Jaylen took the first handoff, daylight appeared for just a split second, but Marcus crashed down instantly, planting him straight into the turf. Jaylen felt it immediately, the sheer force of his brother, and as Marcus lay on top of him, he let him know it was going to be a long night. On the sideline, coaches told Jaylen they'd have to scheme him away from number 44, but Jaylen didn't want to back down from the challenge. And early on, Marcus was everywhere, and Jaylen was struggling to get anything going. Vanderbilt faced an early 4th and 1, and the coaches decided to roll the dice. It's another handoff to Jaylen, and Marcus stepped up, ready to blow up another run, but Jaylen cut back hard, slipping through 2 tackles and rumbling forward for 23 yards. Marcus jogged back to the line smirking. He was proud, but not satisfied. He made sure that was the last run like that, buckling down and burying Jaylen hard to kill Vanderbilt's momentum. Jaylen was getting frustrated. Marcus, meanwhile, was tapping into a whole new level. On the very next drive, he jumped a route and snagged the ball clean out of the air. Alabama was rolling, and Jaylen watched in awe. Marcus didn't even look like he was breaking a sweat out there. Down 7 and approaching halftime, Vanderbilt desperately needed a spark. Jaylen needed something, anything, to swing the momentum. Instead, he was met by Marcus once again, who literally chuckled as he brought him to the ground. But Jaylen wasn't folding. He popped right back up and started ripping off runs and dragged Vanderbilt across midfield. With 30 seconds left and no timeouts, the Commodores dialed up a screen pass, but Marcus sniffed it out instantly and took off in a full sprint, eyes locked on Jaylen. But that's when instincts took over. Jaylen threw up a vicious stiff arm right to the side of Marcus's helmet, launching him to the turf. The crowd exploded. Jalen Knox just put the nation's best defender, his own brother, in the dirt. Marcus popped back up stunned. For the first time ever, he realized he might have underestimated his brother. With the clock winding down before halftime, Vanderbilt rode the energy in the stadium, and Jaylen slashed across the middle, hauling one in for the score. We have a tie ball game. Coming out of the break, Jaylen stayed hot, ripping off a 20-yard run right out of the gate, and the stadium erupted again as Knox chants flooded First Bank Stadium. Marcus heard the chants echoing, and for the first time in his life, the cheers weren't for him. So he decided enough is enough. Vanderbilt dumped off a pass to Jaylen, and Marcus detonated it on contact. Alabama's defense clamped down, flipped the momentum, and the Tide offense wasted no time reclaiming the lead. This game was a knockdown, drag-out fight. Jaylen did everything in his power to keep Vanderbilt alive, but Bama's defense took over, leaving him with nowhere to go. Then late in the game, Vandy clawed their way back into the red zone, but Marcus Knox was inevitable. He shed the block, exploded into the backfield, and buried the quarterback, and that might have been the nail in the coffin. And as time ticked away, Alabama's air attack continued to overwhelm Vanderbilt's secondary, and another long touchdown sealed it. Final score, 21-14. Jaylen's heart sank. He was crushed, being so close and still coming up short. But deep down though, he knew the truth. His brother was the difference in this one. Post-game, the two met at midfield. Marcus pulled Jaylen in close and told him he played a hell of a game, that he was a fighter, and now the whole country could see it. Jaylen, still trying to stomach the sting of defeat, let the pride spill onto his face. Sure, he didn't win, but was he supposed to? He proved he could go toe-to-toe with the best in the country, and for now, that was enough. And as the teams exited the field, Jaylen told Marcus to go win the natty for the both of them. Marcus just nodded. The Knox twins had gone blow for blow with the whole country watching, and the feeling hanging in the air was undeniable. College football would never be the same again. Following the win, Marcus was more fired up than ever. Alabama sat at 6-0, ranked 3rd in the nation, on a bullet train headed straight for the national championship. There was nothing hotter in college football than that, right? Except that's not what the country was talking about. The clip flooding everyone's timeline, Jalen Knox planting the nation's best linebacker into the turf. The stiff arm heard around the world. Marcus had the TFLs, the interception, hell, even the game-sealing sack, but all anyone wanted to talk about was that play.
Alabama gets the win, 21-14, but let's be honest, everybody's walking out of that stadium talking about that stiff arm.
Jalen Knox taking his brother, the best defensive player in the country, and planting him in the turf. I mean, Marcus was horizontal.
For the first time in his football career, Marcus Knox looked human. But that feeling didn't sit with him for long. It turned into fuel. He underestimated his brother once. He wouldn't make that mistake again. Marcus arrived at Tennessee like a man possessed, ready to give the nation something new to talk about. On the opening drive, he saw the game differently. His instincts were sharper, reactions quicker, jumping a route for an early interception. A play so good, it sent him into some state of shock. Marcus? The Tide offense rallied behind the turnover, quickly cashing in with 7, and Marcus went back out there, but he wasn't close to done. On the very next drive, he dropped back into coverage again, read the quarterback's eyes, and snagged another interception. The nation wasn't ready for this Marcus. The volunteer crowd was stunned, and the entire Bama sideline erupted, watching their superstar take over the game. But despite the turnovers, Tennessee hung around. Alabama's offense sputtered, and by the fourth quarter, the Tide were actually trailing by 4. The Vols drove deep into the red zone, threatening to extend their lead, and on 3rd and goal, Bowl, Marcus knew giving up a score might mean their first loss. So he baited the route, peeled back, and intercepted his third ball of the game. I don't know about you guys, but I feel a random drug test coming after today. Bama did nothing with it, but Marcus had done too much to lose this game. With a minute left and needing one last stop, he stayed disciplined, ignored the jet sweep, and crashed down the line to bury the back. The defense held, and this time, by the skin of their teeth, Bama marched right down and stole the game by 3 points, keeping their undefeated season alive. A generational performance Tide fans would never forget. Back in the locker room, Coach pulled Marcus aside, apparently bummed the defense didn't hold Tennessee to 1 touchdown. Geez, Coach, it's not like Marcus had 3 picks or anything. But even if the staff wasn't ready to praise him, the nation was. After that performance, Marcus was named National Player of the Week. I think it's safe to say that after the Knox Bowl, Marcus wasn't slowing down, and funny enough, hearing the country hype his brother while clowning him might have been the best thing that could have happened. He was quicker, stronger, hitting harder, and snagging interceptions like he'd been playing corner all season. And this one looked like it could go all the way. Oh my gosh, he's gonna do it. Oh, never mind. He's brought down at the 2. Sorry, Marcus, maybe touchdowns just aren't your thing. South Carolina became another victim of Marcus 3.0. Alabama rolled again, and now the question was unavoidable. Were they really going to run the table? After dismantling every ranked opponent in their way, only one team remained that could even hold a candle to the Tide. A small, tiny, very, very dimly lit candle, but a candle nonetheless. Marcus walked into Tiger Stadium with an ego the size of Louisiana. Opponents feared him, teammates wanted to be him, and even if he'd never admit it, his head was beginning to get too big for his helmet. Though you could argue if anyone had earned an ego, it was Marcus Knox. Against LSU, he didn't miss a beat, but the team around him did. The offense stalled, and when the Tigers kept the ball away from Marcus, the other Tide defenders weren't quick enough to stop them, letting up a score late in the third quarter. And from there, everything unraveled. The offense still did nothing, and the defense was playing lights out, like if the lights were off. Like they couldn't see a thing. LSU tacked on another score, and this one just got ugly. By the final whistle, Alabama's perfect season had come to an end. And this is where things truly started to change for Marcus. For the first time, he truly understood it. He was only one of 22 players on the field. No matter how dominant he was, he couldn't fix everything. He was playing near flawless football, but he couldn't exactly play quarterback at the same time. Against a struggling Georgia team, Alabama avoided a complete collapse into a losing streak. But after watching the offense muster just 9 points, Marcus was having sophomore year flashbacks. This defense was special. Alabama could not waste it. At 10-1 with the postseason looming, Marcus wasn't exactly on cloud 9. Up in Nashville though, in the wake of their matchup, Jaylen was living a different reality. He was determined to prove his performance against Marcus and Alabama was more than just a viral passing moment. It was the arrival of a new force in college football. Students all across campus were putting his stiff arm everywhere. Shirts, flags, posters, you name it. But the hype meant nothing if he couldn't build on it. But in Lexington, Kentucky made it clear they weren't going to let that happen. Vanderbilt's offense looked out of their depth and was collapsing on all fronts. But slowly, Jaylen imposed his will, showcasing the same strength he did against Bama, the same refusal to be brought down. The offense found their footing, and Jaylen was tossing Wildcats aside like tackling dummies on his way to the end zone. In the end, Vanderbilt fell short, but Jalen Knox, now being labeled as the toughest back in the SEC, had officially arrived. Even as Vanderbilt quietly slipped into a 3-game losing streak, nobody doubted Jaylen, not anymore. He even guaranteed a win in their next matchup, just to give reporters something to chew on. A bold move, but Jaylen just wanted to silence any doubters that might still be out there. And against UL Monroe, he would do just that, opening the day with a run straight up the middle on 3rd down, dragging defenders across the goal line with him. Pretty soon, Jaylen was running headfirst into hordes of Warhawks, and not even 3 of them could keep him out of the end zone. All that was nice, but he wanted to show he could do more than just run dudes over. He could get shifty in space too, weaving through traffic and hitting a second gear 55 yards to the house for his 3rd score of the day. Jaylen spent the afternoon running a one-man track meet, leading Vanderbilt to a dominant win. For Jaylen, the realization had began to set in. Losing to his brother lit a fuse for him. The nation had started taking him seriously, and for the first time in his career, it felt like the shadow he had spent years running from was finally behind him. At least, that's what he told himself. Jaylen was gearing up for the final stretch of his junior year when he received a call. He and Marcus hadn't really talked much since their matchup, but one night, Marcus finally reached out just to vent. And like a good brother, Jaylen listened as Marcus talked about a team wobbling under the weight of expectations and an offense that couldn't find consistency. Marcus went on for a while, and when he finally paused, Jaylen hit him with some opinions of his own. Did I stiff arm you too hard or what? You're 10-1 heading to the playoffs, exactly where you wanted to be. I'm over here dragging a team week after week just trying to finish at 500. Keep your head up, and who knows, maybe next year we can chase something together. It was the first real brother-to-brother conversation they'd had in a long time, and Jaylen wasn't exaggerating. He quite literally had the entire Vanderbilt program on his back. Against Auburn, it felt like he was the only spark on the offense. His motor never quit, and he kept chunking yardage, but before long, SEC defenses caught on. Auburn loaded the box, shut everything down, and sent Vanderbilt packing. But despite the loss, Jaylen Jaylen still carved his name into the program record books. With only 2 games left and nothing left to play for but pride, Jaylen narrowed his focus down to just 2 goals, finish strong, and figure out what the hell the plan was for next year. Texas came next, and early on, Jaylen ran hard, but it didn't take long for the Longhorns to commit fully to stopping number 6. The coaching staff tried to get creative, lining him up out wide, finding ways to feed him the ball, but there was only so much he could do. Texas swarmed him relentlessly, abandoning everything else, and Jaylen paid the price. The Longhorns would win in a thrilling 3-2 victory in what had to be the biggest snooze fest of the season. But even in the loss, Jaylen walked away with some newfound clarity, the kind only a certain type of beating could deliver. Vanderbilt's staff was already penciling him in as the centerpiece for next season, but Jaylen wasn't sure that was what he even wanted anymore. He'd spent 2 years at Sam Houston and Vanderbilt really being the only weapon on the offense, and for once, he wanted to know what it felt like to have a full supporting cast. And there was one team up that felt long overdue. Going into the final game of the year, the mission was simple: upset number 18 ranked Tennessee and look good doing it. The Vols, however, didn't plan on making it easy, but on the opening drive, Jaylen ran through 2 clean holes and walked untouched into the end zone. He might need to buy his offensive line dinner for that one. For the rest of the afternoon, Jaylen ran himself into the ground. With the game tied at 7 and halftime approaching, he took a handoff, burst into the second level, weaved through traffic, and nearly broke free before being dragged down at the 3-yard line. Vanderbilt would have to settle for 3, but late in the third quarter, Jaylen got his get back, hitting the edge and high-stepping into the end zone to give Vanderbilt the lead. Tennessee, however, wasn't rolling over that easy, responding with a score, and with under 2 minutes left, Vandy trailed by 4. Jaylen wasn't finding any space on the ground, so the coaches dialed up a deep shot. The throw was perfect, the catch was miraculous, and the Commodores went up with a minute left. And everyone thought it was over until a last-second field goal sent the game into overtime. Exhausted, Jaylen stayed involved early, helping in the screen game to get the offense moving, but Tennessee adjusted quickly and bottled him up again. It was clear this game would require someone else to step up, and on 3rd and 5, the quarterback fired it quick to the tight end in the end zone for a touchdown. One clutch defensive stop later, and Vanderbilt had pulled off the upset. For Jaylen and the Commodores, you couldn't script a better ending. Jaylen's junior year was officially in the books and concluded with a Doak Walker Award, first-team All-SEC, and All-American honors. But as the accolades poured in, he felt something else. Watching his brother prepare for a playoff run stirred something deeper in him. Maybe next year they could chase something together. With Jaylen's season over, all attention shifted to Marcus, who was on his own mission. After a roller coaster year, Alabama had punched their ticket to the SEC Championship, a revenge matchup against LSU, the only team to hand the Tide a loss this season, a blemish on Marcus's otherwise flawless campaign. The stakes were massive, and as Marcus took the field, he knew it, not just for a title, but for legacy, a chance to remind everyone why he was the best Knox to ever step on the field. And the entire family was packed in, ready to watch Marcus make a statement. The defense took the field first, and Marcus was eager to get his get back, but on the opening play, the Tigers went deep downfield, completely torching the secondary for a 70-yard score. Alabama's offense stalled, no surprise there, and Marcus knew he couldn't afford to start slow in this one. So on 3rd down, he came flying downhill, laying the hammer to force the stop. But the offense failed to capitalize. So Marcus kept doing what he does, punishing runners, killing drives, playing his brand of football. Alabama finally found points, and the game turned into a war. Marcus kept flying around sideline to sideline, but LSU kept getting right back up. Then in the 3rd quarter, the rush got home, forced the ball out, and it scooped up and taken all the way back for 6. And Marcus sprinted the length of the field just to lay someone out for good measure. Late in the game, Alabama held a slim lead, but LSU was driving. Marcus did everything he could to try and call game, but the Tigers would eventually sneak one in, and this one was going to overtime. And in the most dramatic fashion possible, Alabama's defense would come through clutch with a pick-6 and walk-off touchdown in overtime. Marcus and the Tide lock up the SEC, getting their revenge and securing their spot in the college football playoff. With a round 1 bye locked up, Marcus finally had time to sit back and scout the competition, but it didn't take long before Alabama found themselves staring down a familiar foe, the Oklahoma Sooners. You know, just the team that pushed Bama to the brink earlier in the year. Marcus walked onto the field fully prepared for a war, expecting the competition to stiffen with every passing week. Instead, his defense did this. Let's go ahead and count them together. An interception in the 1st quarter, returned all the way for a 6, another interception on the very next drive, then a 3rd, then a 4th, and finally, number 5. 5 total interceptions for Alabama's defense. Marcus wasn't asked to be Superman in this one, and honestly, he didn't need to be. He still made his presence felt, forcing a fumble and flying around as usual, but for the most part, he was just out there running cardio while his defense did the heavy lifting. Alabama sent Oklahoma home a little sooner than they would have liked, and just like that, Marcus Knox was 1 win away from a national championship appearance. And after the win, having watched his brother play under the brightest lights, Jaylen felt that familiar itch creep back in. Seeing Marcus on the field reignited something competitive in him, and when he reached out to congratulate congratulate Marcus, he made it clear. Next year was their year, together, just like they'd always planned. Marcus agreed without any hesitation, and the idea of the twins finally taking over college football side by side felt inevitable. But before he could even think about how to decorate their dorm room, Marcus still had unfinished business. Business by the name of Florida State in the college football semifinal. Even with an SEC title and a playoff win under his belt, Marcus wasn't satisfied, not even close. And for the first time ever, he looked more machine than twin. Alabama, now ranked number 2 in the country, opened the game by scoring a touchdown. Marcus was caught off guard, but he wasn't about to get comfortable. On Florida State's opening drive, a screen pass barely had time to develop before Marcus sniffed it out, exploded downhill, and detonated the back for a loss. Just like that, the tone was set immediately. On 4th and inches, the Seminoles decided to go for it, but Alabama's defensive front had other plans. Off the snap, 4 defenders teleported into the backfield, blowing up the play before it even got going. The offense kept pace, and the defense kept the pressure cranked up to 11. A safety would take the Florida State offense off the field, and by the third quarter, Alabama held a 12-point lead, but Marcus wasn't taking his foot off the gas. He kept filling gaps like a pro, stuffing runs and blowing up plays before they started. In the 4th quarter, the Seminoles were searching for anything, a sign of life to cling to, but Marcus wasn't going to give them one. He was out to finish it, and that's exactly what he did. Marcus Knox and Alabama punched their ticket to the national championship. As the team celebrated, Marcus was stone cold. He wouldn't be satisfied until he lifted that trophy himself. And now, this was it. It was here. An entire season of blood, sweat, and punishment, all culminating into one game. The very game Marcus had spent his entire life working to reach. The national championship. Against Clemson in the rain. It doesn't get more cinematic than this. And no amount of bad weather was going to slow Marcus down. He immediately got to work, making his presence on the field felt. Alabama forced a quick 3 and out, and to absolutely no one's surprise, the offense couldn't do anything with their own possession. Clemson wasn't exactly moving the ball either, and for a long stretch, the game just wasn't moving. Both offenses were stuck in the mud, while Marcus had the defense hunting. Until late in the 2nd quarter, Clemson finally broke through with an end zone strike over Marcus's head, but Alabama answered right back with a touchdown of their own. Tied at 7, approaching halftime, and with neither team holding firm control, Marcus knew he was going to have to be the difference in this one. Clemson was held to just a field goal, and Alabama scored coming out of the break to take the lead. The momentum felt like it was shifting, but late in the 3rd quarter, Clemson landed another blow, a long strike over the middle, and not a single soul in the secondary could recover. And just like that, the Tigers reclaimed the lead. Thankfully, Alabama responded with a field goal, tying the game at 17, and now in the 4th quarter, Marcus could feel it, a national title just minutes away. But he wasn't going to just wait for it, he wanted it now. He crashed through the line, shed the block, and buried the quarterback for a sack. The stadium erupted, and as the rain poured harder, Marcus looked like he was just getting started. And on 3rd and 5, he was looking for another, ready to put this game on ice. He took off on the blitz again, brushed past the back, but this time the QB was quick to escape. No edge was set on the other side, and the Tigers surged forward for a massive gain and a fresh set of downs. Still, Alabama's defense refused to fold. They forced Clemson back into another 3rd and long, and with 2 minutes left, Marcus and the Tide dialed up the pressure, looking for the dagger, overwhelming the line and burying the quarterback yet again. The defense did their job, Clemson punted, and now it was all on the offense. An offense that had struggled all season, now given one final chance to prove themselves. Marcus stood on the sideline and watched hopelessly as it all unraveled. The offense is brought down for a safety, and Clemson goes up by 2 with a minute to play. Marcus took the field one last time, and with 3 timeouts and a dream, Bama needed a miracle. Just one stop. And Marcus was not rolling over, coming through with a huge TFL on 2nd down. Timeout called. 3rd and 3, one more stop was all they needed. Marcus takes off for the QB, but it's thrown quick and completed on a shallow route over the middle. 1st down Clemson. Every Alabama fan felt their stomach drop. From there, the Tigers kneel it out, and Marcus was stunned. As the orange confetti fell, he stood frozen, watching the Tigers celebrate with his trophy. Marcus walked off the field alone, sick to his stomach. He had done everything possible, and it still wasn't enough. Back at his locker, a text from Jaylen appeared. "Next year, we'll finish it together." Marcus started to type, then stopped. He couldn't find the words. And when his coach came over to console him, he finally spoke, saying it couldn't end like this. He was going to transfer after this year and team up with his brother. But this needed to be done. He needed this. Marcus finally picked up the phone to Jaylen. He was staying at Alabama. He couldn't leave it like this. He had to win it all, and it had to be here. Hearing this, Jaylen felt a wave of anger overcome him. Betrayal even. After months of talking, planning, and dreaming about finally teaming up, Marcus was backing out now? You're really gonna choose Bama over us? Marcus didn't even answer. And suddenly, with senior year looming, the bond between the twins, once unbreakable, was beginning to crack.